Hi, I'm Jessica, and when I'm not drinking all the coffee, watching Razorback sports, or hanging out with my family of boys, it's my passion to help elementary music teachers just like you find your unique teaching style. My goal with this podcast is to share helpful tips, strategies, and to give you the motivation you need to gain momentum in your teaching so you can continue being the music teacher rock star you already are. Welcome back to the podcast. You are listening to episode 77. This is an interview with Traci Stewart, and I am so excited for you to listen today because this conversation is all about how to turn those negative music teacher experiences into positive ones. You all know that there are so many things that go on during your day as a music teacher, and they can be definitely negative from something someone says to you, which is her experience, also with teaching on a cart, which is her experience, and so many other things that go into being a music teacher, just from feeling misunderstood, feeling like people don't really know what you do all day, and it can start bringing up these negative feelings. So this conversation is very much needed, and I'm so excited for you to listen because maybe you've been feeling negative about you as a music teacher and you're ready to turn those thoughts into positive thoughts. So this episode will help you with mindset for sure. So a little bit about Traci. She is an elementary music teacher from Alabama. She says she loves her school and loves her students. She has been married for 20 years and has two teenagers in the high school marching band, which she is also the lead chaperone coordinator for, sorry. She also teaches group fitness as a Revelation Wellness instructor, and I cannot wait for you to hear Traci talk all about how to turn negative music teacher experiences into positive ones. So let's go ahead and get right on in. Welcome back to the podcast. I am so excited to have Traci on today, and she is going to talk about how to turn the negative parts of teaching music into positive. And this is such a message that I think everyone needs to hear, and I am so excited to have her on. You heard me talk about her in the intro, but I wanted her to talk even a little bit more about herself right now. So, Traci, I would love for you to just tell us all about you, and welcome to the podcast.
Sure. Hello. Thank you for having me. Thank you so much. Um, so my name is Traci. Had just started my 10th year of teaching music. I've taught all ages from pre-K to sixth grade, but last year they took sixth grade out of our elementary and put it in middle school, which I can't say that I'm sad about. But and actually, I only taught pre-K, I guess it was 2 years ago, and I was really nervous to teach pre-K. And they were like, why you teach sixth graders? But I loved it. I loved it. And I get to teach them again this year. So that's super cool. I'm married to my husband, Dave. We have been married 20 years tomorrow, which is not when thank you, not when you'll be listening to this podcast, but tomorrow is our 20th anniversary. And I have two children. My son is a junior in high school, and he plays percussion in the band. And my daughter is a freshman, and she is on the dance line for the band.
Oh,
So
awesome.
she doesn't play an instrument, but she loves to dance. So, and fun fact, my husband is the band booster president. And then I am the lead of coordinating all the chaperones. So we're just all about band this fall.
Yeah, that reminds me of that just brings me back to my high school days because I played clarinet and my parents came on all our band trips. My mom was, really involved. And so I think that's really important though for parents. That's another story for another day. But if their kids are in activities, but band it's a lot of work. So kudos to your kiddos. They got that music bug from you, huh, Mom?
Maybe my husband's also pretty musical. So my son actually wants to go to school to be a film composer.
Awesome.
He wants to be the next John Williams. So he wants to either go to Berkeley School of Music or somewhere far, far away from us, which makes me sad. But I'm also super proud of him and cheering him on.
That's awesome.
So,
Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much for that, for letting us into a little bit more about you, letting us know a little bit more about you. So I wanted to start out by asking, you've already talked to us a little bit about your joys of teaching music, and but if you could tell me one thing or multiple things that you like about teaching music, what would that be?
Oh, Well, it's just fun. Like this is my 10th year of teaching, and I still walk into the building this morning or in the morning and am like, I can't believe I get to do this.
Mhm.
It's so fun. And every class looks different. I can plan the same lesson plan all week long, and it can look different on Monday than it did on Thursday. Um, it used to kind of hurt my feelings that people might say, well, all you do is sing songs all day. I kind of felt like it was belittling what I did. But now I'm like, I do sing songs all day with kids. I mean, I know there's more to it than that, but I mean, that's pretty cool. That's pretty fun.
Yeah.
Um, so I love that. I love that kids um, who have challenges and uh, maybe don't have the best reputation in other classes um, seem to do well in music. I mean, obviously not all of them, but I love it when a teacher like says, "How was so and so?" And I'm like, "They were fine," which again doesn't happen all the time, but um, I just love that it's an opportunity for kids to kind of take a break from the day, and it's just fun.
Yeah. I one thing you just said that I love is it can feel like a negative thing, which is our conversation today. So it's a good
Mhm.
segue. But you said it can feel negative sometimes when teachers will say, "Well, all you do with the kids is sing," and a lot of things. I want to ask you about this because do you feel like sometimes when it comes to our thoughts that it is sometimes what people say, how it makes us feel, sometimes is the way we take it? Because
Oh,
maybe I mean, sometimes people probably do have those intentions, but a lot of times maybe that is just what they're meaning is you just teach singing, but they may not
yes,
be meaning it the way that we think they are. And so I
absolutely.
feel like sometimes it's just the way that we perceive what people say that can turn it into negative for us as music teachers.
Right. I think that, and not just as a music teacher, but just in life, that we have to be really careful about assuming what other people are thinking. And people do make comments that can be hurtful and kind of make like I'm a big I don't know if you know about the love languages, but like my love language is words of affirmation.
Mhm.
So I like to be told, you've done a good job or you did it right or and so when somebody makes me feel like I didn't do a good job or I didn't do it right, I can take that very, very personal. But I've learned over the years that, and I'm still learning that people don't always mean what they say in the way that they said it. And so we have to have like gracious assumptions for other people. Like
Yeah.
sometimes I think that we assume people are being rude when they're really not. And
Mhm.
so it's a good idea to kind of step back and think about that comment they just made and think like, did they mean it in a bad way or do they just not understand? And talking about teaching music, we're going to talk about this in a second, but I teach on a cart. I don't have a classroom.
Mm.
And a teacher friend of mine told me that when she had to do that, she had a classroom teacher say, after observing her teach, say, wow, you really like have lesson plans and you really build on your lessons. Like, I guess this person thought all she did was sing songs all day.
Mhm.
And so, but she didn't know any better. And so, yeah, we just have to, it's our perception for sure.
I feel like a lot of times, I'm going to use my sister as an example, and she'll be totally fine with this. But she is a third, fourth grade teacher. She's kind of gone back and forth, and now she's the ESOL coordinator at her school. And she, for the longest time, had no idea what I did. I feel like sometimes with the classroom teachers, honestly, I feel like that's part of the issue is they just have never observed what happens in a music room. And so they think back maybe to their elementary music experience, which music education has changed so much
It
in a
has.
good way. But
Mhm.
I mean, I think back to my experience, it was a lot of sitting and singing, which there's nothing wrong with that, but that is probably what they're still thinking goes on. And so, um, yeah, like you said, it's just the wrong assumption sometimes just because they are not aware probably of
Mhm.
what really does go on in a music classroom.
Right. Yeah.
I also think the one thing I heard before that actually a couple times is, oh, you need a degree to teach music. And I would look in well, I mean, yeah, what? I just was like, I mean, yeah, you can't just walk in off the street and, uh,
Well, and I also think I remember sitting with some teachers at lunch, and we could see the PE coach outside with the kids, and the kids were running around, and the PE coach was simply standing there. Didn't look like she was doing much. I'm sure she was observing and doing what she was supposed to do. And the teachers I was sitting with were like, well, it must be nice to just be able to stand around. And in my mind, I was like, I didn't say it out loud, but I was like, well, you could have gone to school to be a PE teacher.
Right?
I mean, so, if you think my job is easy singing songs all day, you could have gone to school to do that.
Right. Right.
So, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, it's so true. Okay, so continuing our conversation about how to turn a negative experience into a positive one, I would love for you to share with us a story or stories, which we've already been talking about it a little bit, about maybe a negative experience that you've had and how did you turn it into a positive?
Okay, so is it okay if I kind of explain how our school, our music and art works at our school?
Oh, completely. Yeah.
So our kids get music for half a year and art for half a year. Um, but those are two consecutive halves. So they basically get music from January to December and then art from January to December. So they're without music class for an entire year, which is incredibly frustrating.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, if you don't use it for an entire year, of course you're not going to remember it. And it's not the kid's fault, right? So that's frustrating. And then when I first got hired, we had 4 teachers serving 7 elementary schools. Um, and then 3 years ago, they cut it down to 3 teachers serving 7 elementary schools, which meant that it cut our class time. We were at even more multiple schools. We had to stop teaching our school chorus, which that was my favorite thing to do. And it was just really difficult. And then that same year is when I got put on a cart. So needless to say, that was my most difficult year. That was 3 years ago. And I actually went through this period of depression, like literally, and just like I didn't want to do it anymore. I was just so discouraged. Um, and I went to the new school for the year, and that's where I was put on a cart. And it was terrible. My attitude was terrible. I did not decorate my cart. I mean, I wasn't like rude to anybody, but I did not have a good attitude. And fast forward to last year, when I came back to the school that I was on a cart, something inside of me just clicked. And actually, I mean, I prayed about it a lot, and I kind of changed my prayer though, because before then I was like, God, just change all these things. Like give it all back, somehow let us have the other person back teaching. Let me have my classroom back. Like almost like he's a genie or something and I'm just making some wishes. So I decided, which that's not how God works. But anyway, um, but something in me just clicked to pray like a different prayer. And instead of like, give all this stuff back, like just help my attitude. I mean, if these things are not going to change, help me to be able to deal with them better. And so that was last January. And I always pick a word of the week. I don't know, Jessica, if you ever, I mean, a word of the year, a word for the year. I
Yeah.
don't know if you ever do that. But so my word for this year was peace. And I promise you, when I stepped foot into that school in January, it was completely different. I decorated my cart really cute, and I just had a better attitude. And so then fast forward to the end of last school year, they hired back the 4th music teacher.
Oh,
And
awesome.
so I basically got to choose which. I couldn't go to the same 2 schools I've been going to for 9 years. I had to choose one, and I actually chose the one where I'm on a cart because I love that school so much. I love the other school. If anybody's listening from the other school, I love the other school, and they know that. They're like
Yeah.
family. But this school, just even being on a cart, it's where I wanted to be. And so this year, I actually get to be there all year long. The kids don't get me all year long, but the school has like over 1,000 students.
Oh,
And
wow.
so it's going to take me all year to service all the students.
Hmm.
So I get to stay there all year long. And really, I don't know, miracle is probably a strong word, but it is pretty amazing that I went from depressed, bad attitude, didn't want to decorate my cart, to now this is the school I chose to be at on this cart. I decorated it, and I'm not taking credit. Like that's all God. Like I prayed, I changed my perspective. He changed my perspective, and I just know that my strength is in him. And so it's just been, it's been such a journey over the last 3 years, but it's been really, really, really cool.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Yes, definitely giving it to God and letting go, because sometimes things are out of our control. And I mean, gosh, that just goes for so many areas of our life. And
Hmm.
it is an attitude thing. There's so many times that when I'm feeling overwhelmed by anything in my life, and it just feels like I'm not making traction, and it's just like, but yeah, it's just sometimes it's an attitude shift, and that is
Hmm.
so hard. It's so easier said than done.
I think asking for help too from other people. Like when I wanted to decorate my little office, I actually posted on Instagram, and I don't know her name in real life, but she's music on a cart, which I
Mhm.
was like, brilliant. Can I be your best friend?
Ah.
She suggested that cause I have like a wall that I wanted to decorate, and I was like, do you have any quotes? And she said, bloom where you're planted. And
Mhm.
so I printed a sign that said bloom where you're planted. And it's been kind of my mantra, but I think my I guess my point is like we we can't do this by ourselves. I mean, we can't do life by ourselves, but we can't, because that's another struggle with being a music teacher. It's real easy to feel lonely and just like nobody cares, like nobody's there for you, like nobody understands. And sometimes that may be true, but there are people who care. There are people who understand, and it may take you reaching out of your comfort zone to reach out to people. One year, I decided that I was going to write notes to the classroom teachers, and I wrote a note to one particular teacher. And she and I had never been that close before that, but when I sent her that note, it was like, I mean, we hug each other now when we see each other. And so it's just it's stepping out and finding your people and seeking them to help encourage you, um, and being careful not to be around the people who are the negative,
Mhm.
because it is easy to sit around and vent about all the things that are wrong.
Mhm.
And for me personally, when I get around those people, it's easy for me to fall into that. And so I'm not saying like ignore certain people, but
Right,
I
right.
mean, if you know those people are like that, maybe don't spend so much time with them.
Yeah.
Because it's counterproductive. If you're trying to have a better attitude about what's going on, then don't sit around and talk about it.
Yeah.
I was thinking about today. Um, we had gone to Chick-fil-A for dinner, and it was crazy busy. And on the way there, I was like, man, I wish there was one more closer to our house. And then I thought in my mind, I was like, you know what? I shouldn't speak that out loud because there's not one. So like just saying that, like it's not going to change.
Mhm.
And I do think there is a time and place to talk about your feelings and talk, but to constantly be focusing on what's wrong or what you wish was different is not going to help your attitude.
Right. Yeah.
So
I love that completely. And I know what you mean. And, well, we're not going to name any names, but we've all been in schools where there's just, you feel like you can't even eat in the teacher's lounge because it's just, a negative city gripe fest.
mhm.
And I'm just like, I'm just wanting to eat my lunch. But it is so easy to get just wrapped up in that. And you're like, oh, well, guess what I heard? Or, oh, the principal said this to me, or da 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 da. And, or you
Mhm.
start talking about the students, and then it just,
Oh,
no. And so yeah, I got to the point where I would just eat in my room. I would eat in my car sometimes just to get away from everybody because I needed a break.
like I eat lunch in my office, and so like I'm not. I could go in the cafeteria if I want to, but like I was just thinking about, instead of focusing on the negative, like everything that's wrong, like focus on what's right. Hey, I get to eat lunch in my office in peace and quiet.
Hmm. And one cool thing I thought of is, like you said, sometimes the negative will rub off on you if you're around it enough. But think about the flip side of that. If you're the
Yes.
positive teacher and you're
Yes.
the one that's not constantly talking about the negative and what's wrong and I don't like this and this should change, then first of all, those teachers are going to know, oh, wait, I can't talk to Traci about that because she's not going to listen, or just not be around that. But also they're going to, kind of sense that something's a little different about you, and the positivity is going to rub off. And so it is so hard though. You
It
know,
is hard.
I mean,
It is.
especially as the music teacher, like you said, it's easy to feel very lonely. It's easy to feel like you are a lot of times the only one in your school. And so a lot of times you feel like you just can't relate to these other teachers. And as much as you like them as people, you can't just go bounce ideas off of them sometimes. And so do you feel like a lot of the negative thoughts and emotions sometimes tie in from that as well, because you feel like you're sometimes on an island on your own?
Yes, absolutely. And this year, being my 10th year of teaching, I actually, and we kind of joke about it, I actually like say that I have a grade level because we have a Spanish teacher at school and we have a an art teacher, and the three of us are there year round. Of course, the art teacher and I are swapping schedules, but and we are just tight. We are tight, and we understand each other, and and that's. But this is the first time in 10 years. So anybody listening to this that doesn't have that now, like, pray about it. Pray for those people who do understand you, and they don't even understand like from a music standpoint, but they get some of the other things that are annoying as a specials teacher.
Right.
And so that's been really, really special this year and something I haven't had before. And so I'm excited about that.
Yeah, it's about, like you said earlier, finding people that you can talk to, even if it's not a
Absolutely.
music teacher, but you feel like, and like, I like that you said that you wrote notes to some of the classroom teachers, because a lot of times you're constantly waiting for other teachers to reach out to you or connect with you or talk to you or invite you out for Friday happy hour or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
But are you ever being that teacher to them first?
Right.
I mean, and I feel like a lot of times as teachers, we say this to the students:
Mm-hmm.
be the positive one, be the friend, be the one that, reaches out and asks someone to be your partner or whatever. But as teachers, we need to remember to do that too.
And I realize that doesn't come naturally to everybody.
No, it really doesn't.
It really doesn't. And I grew up moving every like 3 to 4 years. And so I got used to, having to make friends and being able, to just go up to somebody and have a conversation. But I know there's a lot of people that aren't like that, and that can be really, really intimidating. So maybe, I don't know, maybe pick one person who you really think that you could go and talk to and just start slow and just kind of be around too, because I think it's easy when you are feeling lonely, it's easy to eat lunch in your office. Now, the Spanish teacher and the art teacher and I all eat lunch together now in our little office, which two of us share. But it's easy to isolate your own self. Like, you already feel isolated, but okay, so I'm going to go eat lunch by myself, or at the faculty meeting, I'm going to sit by myself and I'm going to leave as soon as it's over, or,
Right.
and those are understandable feelings, but maybe you should make yourself more available. And look, people can even hurt your feelings at faculty meetings, even over just where to sit. I've had that happen to me.
Oh, yeah.
But she didn't mean it. She didn't. She didn't know it hurt my feelings.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, that happens to me. Your table's in the back or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's say there's a teacher listening and they are maybe they're just not wanting to go back to school, or if they're listening to this and they're maybe already in the middle of the school year, or whenever they're listening, and they're experiencing negativity at school, whether it's the way they're feeling, overwhelmed they're facing, some kind of teacher making them feel a certain way, something with administration, students, whatever it is that's causing the overwhelm, which is turning into negative, emotions and feelings. Is there any advice you can give them for how to move past that? I know it takes time, but maybe what are some first steps that you would advise for helping them?
Sure. Well, so it definitely does take time, but I think if you're of the mindset that this is for a season, because, we lost the one teacher 3 years ago, and I was like devastated and depressed over all the things. And it felt like it was going to be that way forever. And then now, just this year, we've hired back the fourth teacher. But I think, and I realize that's not true for everybody, but I do think that things don't normally last forever, and that we come in and out of positive seasons and negative seasons. And I think it's important to just not give up altogether. And I was reading, I don't remember what the verse was, but a verse in the Bible, and it was basically talking about not dwelling on something but focusing. And it was so interesting to me, because I was like, the difference between dwelling and focusing. And I feel like dwelling, when you dwell on something, it's like you're dwelling on the negative, the bad, your woe is me, this is terrible. But when you focus, I think of something blurry and you bring it into focus, and you pinpoint the positive, and you determine to that no matter what the circumstance is, because maybe you can't do anything about the circumstance. And a lot of times you can't, like, no matter how hard you try, like, it's just the way it is. But as we've already talked about, it's about your perspective and choosing to focus instead of dwell. And I think that makes a huge difference. I'm also a big fan of journaling. I think journaling your feelings, helping you work through your feelings of what the negative is. I hate to say it, but I think just accepting the way things are. My friend that's the Spanish teacher, she's like the most laid back person I know. And I have become more laid back, but I don't think anybody would still call me laid back.
Yeah.
But she's rubbed off on me, and we joke about that. And just the other day I was saying something about something that wasn't fair or something, and she was like, but are you surprised? And I was like, well, no, I mean, like, that's just the way it is. And so I can be upset about it, or I can just be like, well, that's kind of dumb. Maybe I don't agree with it, but that's the way it is. So it's hard, but it's a choice. It's a choice you make. And I guess the first step would be determining which choice you're going to make. Are you going to dwell on it and have a bad attitude and not decorate your cart? Or are you going to make the best of a bad situation and realize that it won't last that way forever?
Yeah. It almost makes me think of when, there's a new teacher and you go into a classroom your first year teaching and you don't know what you're doing. And so it takes baby steps. It's just about taking forward momentum and just taking the steps, because each day it gets easier, each week it gets easier, each month. And I feel like that's the same way if you're in a negative situation where you can't control who they're hiring as your principal. You can't control who the teachers are that are being hired. You can't control your schedule. You can't control a lot of things going on. But like you said, it's about mindset and just moving forward and, dealing with it. I think back to my school, and I didn't have any support with behavior issues. I was at a school that had a lot of behavior issues, very inner city school. And I knew what I was getting into, but it was still, I thought I would have a little bit more support. There was a transition between administration in the middle of the school year. My school we knew it was closing. There was just so much going on. And it was so hard some days to just walk in with a smile on my face. But the other thing I noticed is those days I kind of had a rotten mood, and it was like kind of feeding into all the external going on around me instead of just what was going on with my students. They fed off that energy too. And I would notice a lot more grumpiness, a lot more them not having like joy. So,
Yeah.
That's another thing I guess we could talk about too, because it rubs off on your students when you have a negative attitude as well.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Like, with my students, I really try to, and I'm not always good at this, but I really try to give 100% every lesson, because I'm like, they only see me once a week for 40 minutes. Like, even if I'm like sick or feel bad, and I'm not saying I do this all the time, but I'm like, I've got to put it on for them, because, this is their one time a week. So yes, but they can tell when you go in and you're feeling down, or you're mad about something, or having a bad attitude, and they may not even say it out loud that they can, but they can feed off your energy.
Yeah.
And just like they can feed off negative energy, they can feed off positive energy. So absolutely. So yeah, that's true of our students and the fellow teachers.
Yeah, that's so true. Well, Traci, I have enjoyed this conversation so very much. So before we go, I would love for you to share any other advice you have for music teachers about anything related to music, even if you want to touch a little bit on teaching on a cart and what that's like, because I know I get a lot of questions about that as well.
Oh, sure. I could talk about teaching on a cart. It's different, obviously, than having your classroom. And again, that first time I was just like, oh, the kids can't play my big drums. They can't play, my Orff instruments, and I was just like, oh, what am I going to do? And of course, with the help of others and advice from others, I've learned how to turn that around. And maybe my music classes on a cart don't look like what my music classes would look like in the classroom, but I truly believe they're still as beneficial, and they're still worthy of doing. And it's neat. Like, I was really nervous at first to teach like in front of the teachers in the classroom, because I was like, man, give me a classroom of kids all day and I can be silly and but put an adult in there, and I don't know about that. But obviously, I've gotten over that super fast. And I love for the teachers to see what we're doing. And I love when the teachers join in. So yeah, it's definitely a different experience, and look, if they were to give me a classroom back tomorrow, I would take it for sure. But I don't walk around and say, I hate being on a cart anymore, whereas I used to. There's plenty of things to do in the classroom, besides singing and sitting and singing, which we do plenty of.
Oh, yeah.
But there are plenty of things to do, and there are ways to organize your cart where you can, I teach every grade every day. So it's not like I have third grade all one day, so I can just have whatever materials I need for them. And my schedule this year is 6 40-minute classes in a row before my lunch and planning break.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's another thing that can overwhelm music teachers is their schedule.
Oh, yes.
So I've learned how to plan my lessons in a way that the materials I need, I can maybe use for different grade levels. So it takes planning, but it's definitely doable. And I actually have started to say this. I think that every music teacher should be on a cart once just to see to learn what it's like. And I really think it's made me a better teacher. I really do. Like, I have grown so much since in all different areas of my life, as a teacher, as a person. It's given me a greater appreciation for classroom teachers, which I had before. Classroom teachers are amazing, and they do a lot, and they have their own set of issues. We sit here and talk about teacher issues all day, which is what we do. They have issues oftentimes even bigger than mine. So, So anyway, that's what I say. I say every music teacher should be on a cart at least once to learn from it. Another thing, I'm just going to throw this out here, as I think you said this in my bio, that I am a group fitness teacher. I am a firm believer in exercise, and know that. Well, I was going to say that doesn't have anything to do with teaching music, but it kind of does. But and with music, but I just believe our bodies were made to move. And man, when you are feeling down in the dumps, and is the last time that you want to exercise or move. But I promise you will never regret it. And you don't have to go crazy. You don't have to do it every day. But I just highly, highly suggest moving your body every once in a while. And not just with your kids, but like as exercise for yourself, because I think it's such a mood uplifter. And so I'm a big advocate of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Because a lot of times I feel like what ties into negativity as well is exercise and not taking care of yourself.
Yes.
When's the last time you did something for you? And it contributes to the stress. It's just when you're giving and not taking care of yourself, it can really cause stress.
Absolutely. Well, just trying to, as teachers, we never just leave it at school. You just don't. But when you go home, like really be home with your family, your spouse or your kids or your pets or whoever, and trying to truly be away from it. Because if your mind is on your problems and your issues, not only all day while you're dealing with it, but at night, like that's going to affect your sleep, and it's just an endless cycle. So yeah, you've definitely got to take care of yourself.
Oh, completely. Well, before we go, I would love for you to let everybody know where they can find you and connect with you.
Sure. I have an Instagram account called Elementary Music Matters, kind of a double meaning because elementary music does matter, but also like the matters of our class, like what's going on. So Elementary Music Matters. And then if you're interested, I actually have a faith and fitness account. I do teach fitness, I'm a Revelation Wellness instructor, which is the idea of putting faith and fitness together. And that account is Revelate, REVELATE, Fitness and Praise.
Yeah, and I'll have these links in the show notes as well. So make sure you connect with Traci on Instagram.
Yes, I would love that.
Yes, thank you so much for coming on. And I love this discussion. I think it's really needed, and it's going to be very well received by the music teachers listening today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for listening in to the Elementary Music Teacher Podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. And while you're there, I would love for you to review the show and leave a rating on iTunes. To find out more about how I can help you gain momentum in your elementary music teaching career, head to thedomesticmusician.com, where you'll find free downloads, courses, the blog, and so much more. Continue teaching music and never doubt the impact you're making each and every day in the lives of your students.